All right, so in this video, I'm going to play around with the idea of like reversing the positive versus the negative space. Let's say I wanted to have a full black background. One thing you can do is take your shape tool, right, and put it on a rectangle. And make sure your shape is black, right? And you can fill in your background in black, right? And then move that rectangle to the bottom and then highlight your letter forms and make them white, right? So you're probably wondering, whoops. Okay, well that's easy, but what if I wanted to make half the page black and half white and then play around uh, with flipping some of the flipping half the letters and so forth, doing like a lot more layering. How can I go about this? All right, so makes it a little bit more complicated, but you can do this. Let's say that, oops, I wanted to take my background, let me move this for a second. I wanted to do maybe half the background black and half of it white. All right, maybe I was going to keep this same design. I want my L to stay here. I want my D and my F to stay where they were at. Right, so I think it was kind of like that. Okay. And right now, I'm losing half the F and the D because they're white, right? So how can I go in and make that black? Okay, so this is how I would go about it, right? So I would take my D, right, and my F, and I would make duplicated copies of each of them. So I'm going to select my D, I'm going to duplicate the layer and hit OK, and now I have D copy. I'm going to do the same with my F. I'm going to do duplicate layer, and I'm going to do F copy, okay? Now I'm going to, with my D copy, highlight that D and make it black. Okay? And I'm going to do the same with the F copy. I'm going to highlight that F and I'm going to make it black. But now it's covering over the white part of the letter on the left side. Excuse me. And I want to make that white, half of it white and half of it black. Now, before I do that, I mean, you could definitely play around with some cool 3D type effects and do something like that, right? Same with your T, right? You can do some cool stuff, positive, negative, like so, right? Pretty cool. But let's say I wanted to just literally split that in half. So what I'm going to do, what I need to do is turn my letter forms into a shape. I need to rasterize them and make them into a shape. So I'm going to take my D copy that I made black, and I'm going to go up to Layer, and I'm going to go to Layer, Rasterize. I'm going to go to Rasterize Type. So when I do Rasterize Type, it actually takes that letter form and it makes it into a shape. All right. Now, the thing is, if you do this, it's permanent. You can't go back. You can't change it. So you want to make sure your design is pretty finalized before you start doing anything like this. Okay. Now I'm going to rasterize my type. And now I have an F and a D that are rasterized. And they are also my black letter forms. All right. So now what I can do is select each letter form. So I'm going to select each letter form just using my magic wand tool. So I'm going to click on the D, actually on the F, since I'm on the F right now. And I'm going to say, actually, I take that back. I don't want to do that. I want to delete now the part of the F that's on the black area of the background. So what I'm going to do is take my marquee tool and I'm going to create a box over just that area. Okay, so now I'm on the F, the black F, and I'm selecting just the area of the F that's black on the black background. And if I hit delete, it's going to erase it. Now if I do Command D or Control D, it will deselect that space. So now I'm going to do that to the D, okay, the black D. So I'm going to select my black D, I'm going to take my marquee tool, and I'm going to select just the area that's on the black background, and I'm going to delete, and it gets rid of the black area. I'm going to do Command D or Control T. Now here's the thing. I'm zooming in out when I was doing this. When you're doing this, you really want to look at it closely, right? So you want to make sure that your selections are pretty good. You can see that actually the way I did the F was pretty good, lining it up, but the D isn't. The D kind of overlaps. Now you might say you purposely did it, but I'm going to just go back in and clean that up a little bit. Okay, so there we go. So now that's a little bit cleaner. So that's why it's always good to zoom out and zoom in when you're working on something like this. And that's how you can play around with the idea of more the playfulness of that positive, negative.